What's up, everybody?
Welcome, everybody. This is Steph over here.
Welcome to another episode of Lighthouse Collective. This is Pris, Priscilla, Pris, the little sis. I'm here. Hi, you guys. How are you, Steph?
I am doing what we can say a little bit of mental drainage today, but it's mommy mode. I feel like I need extra legs, extra arms because sometimes my two arms and my two legs aren't enough.
Yeah.
So that's I have a bit of what I'm feeling this week. But I know God is gonna help me pull through. I have projects, I have essays to go home to work on. So I'm just mentally preparing myself because it's mommy, you're the one who can help us. Mommy, you're the one who knows how to do this. And God bless my husband, he has abilities to do certain things when it comes to projects and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But there's other things he's like, yeah, you're the creative one. You're the one with the pretty ideas. You're the one that makes it look pretty. So you take care of that. You told me if you need to draw something, I'll draw it for you. But other than that, he's not that
Well,
creative.
didn't he put it together like a robot?
Yeah, but it's always it is in that aspect.
Handy.
I kind of give the vision. And then he'll kind of okay, got it. We'll do it like this, and we'll build it like this. So it's that mommy creative side, that comes in. Wait until your girls get there, Pris.
Nah, I'm enjoying this little toddler life where they don't have homework or projects or anything. We're just practicing tracing and identifying compound numbers. That's all we gotta
I
do.
wish I was in those days. No, that's not where we're at.
Those days are long gone for you.
Gone.
I'll be there one day. And I'll remember this conversation. But I know it'll be temporary, so, but yeah. So guys, today we have a conversation that Stephanie is extremely passionate about. If you know Stephanie, you know this topic. If you know Stephanie, you know where she stands on this. I know we're not talking about politics.
No.
We're not talking about any policies, that's for sure. We're simply going to be talking today about boundaries.
Yep.
And the importance of them and why everybody should have them, why people should learn to respect them. And also learn what biblically it says about boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a podcast that we want to bring light to people, the light that we want to bring is the light of Jesus and the light of Heavenly Father. So what does he say about boundaries? So this is the conversation we're going to have today. So I'm going to let Stephanie take the lead on this one because to be quite honest with you, I've been struggling with boundaries, not because I personally struggle. It's just a topic that I never really have to sit down and think about it. I just established them naturally because it was what I saw growing up from mommy. Mommy was a person that established boundaries very,
we all knew that once my mom established a boundary, there's no crossing that line. Once my mom said up to here, it's up to here.
Yeah.
You don't cross it. You don't even try because her limit was there.
Yeah.
So Priscilla said, for us, I think our mom was an example of what it was, the importance of setting boundaries.
Yeah.
And she kind of always gave us the explanation of why she did it.
Yeah.
Even though we can kind of talk about it at times,
And I think also growing up, we saw the effects of what it looked like when that boundary wasn't respected,
mm-hmm.
or when that boundary was crossed, or if it wasn't placed
mm-hmm.
and somebody did something. I think since we saw that growing up, what it could do,
how it
could affect as adults now, it's something that we just naturally establish and is part of our processing of relationships and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Steph, obviously we know that this is something that you're passionate about, and because you think it's important.
Yes.
Why do you think it's so important?
Okay. The reason why I think boundaries are so important is because I think a lot of the times people have a misconception that when you set a boundary is because you have something against somebody or you're holding some kind of resentment or grudge against somebody. And a lot of the times that is not necessarily the truth. The truth is, when you set a boundary, it's because there's something within the lines that is happening either in the relationship or in something that's how it's being handled, how it's being done is affecting you.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's affecting you, you have to learn to say, okay, no, wait, this thing is affecting me. Because it when I say that thing, it could be many things. It could be something somebody does. It could be something that, like, it's just how a situation, like, is always, like, coming down to place. Like, for example, how can I put it in words? Like, I'm trying to, like, my brain is thinking right now. Sometimes it's not so much of an action. It could be an action. It could be a word somebody said. There's a lot of scenarios I can fall into. But the main thing is, if whatever that action, whatever that word is that person could have said, if it's causing an effect in you,
Mm-hmm.
you got to learn how to set a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And the boundary is not there because, like I said, once again, it's not because, oh my God, like, I resent this person for what they said to me, or I have a grudge against this person because the way they're behaving. It's just because, you know what, like, that behavior and that words of that you're doing don't align with, like, how I am. And when they don't align with me, they affect me. So who am I to tell you got to change and do things my way? Because that's not, like, who I am to be telling you, like, oh, I don't like how you handle that, so you need to change it and do it how I do it. No. But if I see that the way you're handling that doesn't align, like, of how I would like things to be done, I'm not going to sit around you and let you continue to do something that every time I see you do it, I'm like, why are
Cringe.
like, I'm cringing. Why are they doing it like that? And what am I doing? It's affecting me. So I have to set a boundary to, like, allow that to be, like, clear, like, okay, like, I'm not going to let that affect me anymore. So this is, like, one of the reasons why I think it's so important, because a lot of the times, like I said, once again, there's a misunderstanding with boundaries that a lot of the times, sometimes, because I've had to set boundaries with a lot of people. I've had to learn that sometimes there's going to be people who are going to understand them, and there's people that are not going to understand them.
So what comes to my head when you're talking and you're like expressing the importance of boundaries, what comes to my mind, and if you are Latina, Latino, and grew up in a Hispanic household, we've all heard of la tía tóxica, the toxic aunt, right? And that's kind of like the image that comes to my head. The toxic aunt that comes to you is like, oh, but you need to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
You got a little bit of, nobody's going to want to date you. I remember growing up, they would say, las gorditas solamente las quiere la mamá y las abuelas, pero a puros regaños. To translate, the chunky ones, only the mommies and the grandmas love them, but straight up yelling at them, or like,
like calling them out
for being chunky. And so there's this personality called la tía tóxica, the toxic aunt, that says things or crosses a boundary with you mentally, emotionally, saying things that are unnecessary. When are you going to have a boyfriend? When are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? Like, but, you shouldn't dress like that, or you shouldn't do this, or if you do that, like, nobody's going to want to be with you. And it crosses an emotional boundary that should be placed.
Exactly.
So I've seen this culture or this, generation now stepping up to these toxic aunties and saying, you're not going to say this to me. That is disrespectful. You're not going to tell me that. Don't ask me when I'm going to get married. I'm going to get married when I want to get married. Don't tell me I need to lose weight. I love my body the way it is. And boom. So now that I'm hearing you talk about, it's like, yeah, the importance of it, because growing up, I would hear certain comments like that, sometimes said to me, sometimes said to a cousin, and I saw the effect emotionally that it took on that person, or it took on me. And so it is important, because you need to take care of yourself emotionally and mentally from somebody saying something, and they're probably not saying it in a malice way, or they don't think that they're doing any harm, yet they are.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the point that I was trying to get to with when I said aligning. And it's like when I say aligning, it's like I'm not here to tell you or to correct you, but I do want to let you know that how you're saying it is affecting me. So because it's affecting me, like I need to place this boundary because I don't want you to talk to me like that. I don't want you to say those things to me because they hurt me.
Yeah.
So either that can bring revelation to the person and say, okay, wow, like let me change my way of speaking because yeah, maybe I'm not speaking to, or some people can say, oh, I'm just saying out of love, like it's fine, but just like that's the part. There are some people that don't see the wrong in what they're doing, and that's where you have to set the boundary because I'm not here to tell you you gotta change. I'm just letting you know that it's not aligning with what I need, and so it's affecting me.
It's not that I need you to change, is that if you don't change it, then you know what, don't cross this. If you're not going to come at me right with a question or with a comment, then just
let's stop right there.
Let's stop right there.
Because, you know, the thing is with boundaries, and this is the part where it's so important, is because, you know, it's like a cup, correct?
Okay.
And you have like every little comment, la tía tóxica, let's give example, la tía tóxica, now that we brought it into conversation. It's like every time she makes a comment, it's like a little dot that falls into a cup. A little drip. And another little drip. Eventually all the dripping is going to overflow. And when that overflow happens, because you didn't set the boundary, what's going to happen is that you're going to look like the bad one. Because your reaction in that moment is not going to be a pretty one. It's going to be an explosive one. It's going to be one of calling her out and probably saying a whole bunch of things that you probably feel like, oh, but you don't do this. And it's just going to look bad.
Yeah.
But whose fault is that? I'm not saying that what La Tía Tóxica did is right, but it's also your fault because you should have put that boundary instead of stopped it a long time ago.
Yeah.
Instead of letting your cup get overflown with all those comments that were affecting you. Yeah. So I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that boundaries help us so we don't get to that point.
Got it.
So
how would you, let's keep using the example of La Tía Tóxica. Okay. How would you recommend, let's say somebody, a listener that currently deals with una tía tóxica, how would you recommend them to go about placing the boundary?
Okay. I can honestly say, from my case, and I can say this in a sense of a little bit of like what I've had to go through, not necessarily with an aunt, but there is a change in your demeanor sometimes that they're going to notice that something is off on you. Obviously, every time the comment comes, it affects you.
Yeah.
So your demeanor does change. You might not say anything in the moment, but your demeanor does change. In that moment that they ask you, ¿qué te pasa? What's wrong? Why are you like that? I've always asked God, give me the grace that when somebody asks me, and in that moment that they ask me what's wrong or like what happened, God, give me the grace to speak and let them know that I need to I'm setting a boundary. Because what happened is that there's moments where people are ready to listen, and there's moments where people don't want to listen. Correct? So I've always asked God, like, you know, give me that opportunity when I know I need to set a boundary for them to give me that entry. So I can say, you know what, like, what's wrong? Okay, this is what's wrong. And because of this, like, I need to set this boundary.
Yeah.
Before something like happens.
Yeah.
And before I have either a reaction or whatever it is, like, I need to set this boundary now.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, or maybe or like they can ask you, I've seen you change with me. Why did you change with me? Why are you distant with me? Why aren't you so close with me? When they ask me that, okay, be like, look, I'll explain to you why. This is the reason why. Because I'm setting a boundary because I've noticed X, Y, and Z. And these things are affecting and they're not aligning. And I'm not here to tell you that you got to change. I'm not here to tell you like, stop being who you are.
Yeah.
But I'm just letting you know that that affects me. And because of that, I need to step away.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. And that's how it is. And God has been so good with me. And like in my last couple of times that I've had to set boundaries, that people have actually come to me and asked me, hey, what happened? Or why are you like that? Or what happened? What changed?
Yeah.
And then the moment they give me that opportunity of that window, I'm ready to tell them like, look, ba, 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 ba. Now, there are moments where you do have to take that immediate action of actually say, okay, no, like I need to stop this now. And you do have to step up and say, okay, you know what, God, give me words, give me grace. Because for me, something that I've always asked God and I always try a lot is that when I speak, that God gives me grace to speak.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something that has affected me in my childhood, seeing when as family, when you don't have grace to speak with other family members, the effects that it could have.
Yeah.
So I've always asked God, like, when I want to speak, don't let me speak out of anger. Let me speak in a moment of grace where I can say things in a calmly way and I can let the person know. So right now, I can honestly say, like, when you set a boundary, it's important that you do it before it starts really affecting you.
Yeah.
Because once it starts really affecting you to the point where that cup, like I said earlier, it's overflowing, there's not going to be grace to speak.
Yeah.
So
it's going to come out as an explosion or a rude remark. So,
and then that's where it looks like, oh, you have a grudge, you have a resentment.
Yeah.
You're, oh, where's that God that's in you, you know? So that's something that I've always tell everybody, like, when you practice boundaries, like, God will always give that window.
Yeah.
So take that opportunity.
Yeah.
To be able to speak. Don't allow it to get to the point where the cup overflows, because then it's not going to sound good.
Yeah.
And then you're going to give people that other image that you don't want them to have.
I'm listening to you talk, and as you guys can see, I like to find examples, and you're going to see it in my head. Like, first, the tía tóxica. Now I'm looking at it. About 3 months ago or so, I was in Sophia's room, my youngest, and I was putting her down for a nap. It was pouring. And I'm getting ready to put her down for a nap. So I'm looking out the window and I'm rocking her, and I just see a man walk into our backyard, cross her window, and go towards like the back of our yard. And I freak out. Of course. I'm like, what's going on here? I run out of the room. Thankfully, that day, my husband was working from home. I'm like, Max, somebody's in our yard. Like, what's going on? And he goes outside. He's like, confronts the guy. The guy's like, I don't know what was wrong with him. He's like, oh, the rain. And he just like walked out. But I felt so, one, unsafe, invaded, like our property. And so I'm thinking of this topic of boundaries. And I'm like, why the importance of setting a boundary emotionally is like putting a fence around your house. So things that don't need to be in there and to live there come in.
Yep.
You're telling it, don't trespass. Don't cross this line because it does not need to be in here. I'm not inviting it in. So whether it's the comment, whether it's the trait or action that somebody does, it's setting a limit, like, that is not welcomed into my emotional, my mental space.
Exactly.
It's not welcomed here. So I like I said, I never had to really sit down and think about it. It was just something that naturally I've established in my life because I know the person that I can be. So it's funny how you say that you have to do it before your cup gets too full, and then it's an explosive reaction because you just explode.
Exactly.
Like a ticking time bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I think about it like in my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I had to emotionally set a boundary with my husband and tell him, look, you can tell me whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but if somebody says comments about my mothering,
Mm-hmm.
about how I take care of my home
Mm-hmm.
to you, don't share them with me. No matter who said them.
Mm-hmm.
If you heard it from my mom, if you heard it from your mom, if you heard it from my grandma, if you heard it from my dad, if somebody comments about how I mother, how I take care of my house, and says a comment, don't share it with me. Because I don't want to welcome that thought nor that emotion that will come in, and then I harbor something against that person.
Exactly.
Because boundaries is not only for yourself, it's also for that other person.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you don't want to do is that there's no boundary, and so there's this crossing of line where you're emotionally being affected, and then your heart becomes callous towards a person.
Exactly.
And so I've experienced where my heart has been calloused towards somebody.
Exactly.
And I was cold with that person, and I was mean with that person. So I know what my heart can do and how my heart can be with somebody. So I was like, you know what? When it comes to that, don't tell me anything, because I don't want my heart to be like that again.
Yeah, and that's where we go back. It's like the importance, and like we'll get later onto it, but the Bible does tell us to guard our hearts.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we guard ourselves in what we allow, what we're gonna allow in.
Mm-hmm.
And the boundary is allowing, it's knowing what we're going to allow in. And it doesn't, in no way whatsoever, like, does it mean that, like, oh, is that I don't want to hear it from you, or is I don't care. It's just like, I need to be careful, because like how you said it right now, where you're capable of if you allow all those things to come in.
Yeah.
Like the reactions that can come out of you.
Yeah.
So because you know yourself better than anybody else knows you, you need to know where your boundary stands, where it needs to stop before it affects you.
Yeah.
And sometimes people think, oh, boundaries can create distance with a person. But sometimes that boundary is necessary, because if you don't create that distance with that person, and it doesn't mean that you're completely cutting them out of your life, but it's if you don't create that distance, eventually that relationship, if you don't place the boundary, will fail.
Yeah.
And it will go down a really bad hole, because neither one of you learned how to put a boundary and say, you know what, no, like, we're not going to do this. Like, we're not going to allow this. Like, we need to respect, like, that's how you do things. This is how I do things. And like, it's part of actually living in relationship, right? Exactly.
So you can't just have somebody step all over you.
Exactly.
And just come in and do whatever they please with you. Mm-hmm. You have to do that. And like you said, it's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. You put a boundary, and then that other person has to place their boundaries. Mm-hmm. So then you know how to respect, okay, this is as far as I can go, mm-hmm. with a comment, with an action, mm-hmm. with a thing that they like or they don't like. And you learn to respect that. As husband and wife, you place boundaries.
Of course.
I don't like this. He doesn't like this. And we respect it.
Exactly.
If this doesn't flow with me,
mm-hmm.
you understand that, don't push it on me.
Exactly.
If it doesn't flow with you, I won't push it on you. But if I keep pushing my rhetoric, and not respecting his boundary, mm-hmm. then what am I doing?
Nothing.
I'm pursuing my way of marriage, not our way. We're not doing it together.
Exactly. It's not a team.
It's not a team. It's, mm-hmm. oh no, I'm running.
It's my way.
Yeah. So relationally, it's extremely important to set that boundary.
Exactly. And like right now, like we said it earlier, the importance of, I think Priscilla and me, like we can honestly say, like we had like a great example, which was our mom. Yeah. Our mom she's one person that's always taught us about boundaries and the importance of having boundaries. So for her and I, like, it's always been a very like easy kind of situation to learn when we have to establish these boundaries. But I was like, we were talking earlier, like, for me, in certain ways, like for her, like she's had to learn to do them, and like when she's felt the need, like, okay, I need to tell my husband, or I need to tell
Yeah.
the person, like she's okay with it. And then with me, I was telling her, I was like, yeah, but I was expressing to her how much you don't realize how much there's people out there that truly struggle with it.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, if you're raising young children right now,
Yeah.
like, let them know and teach them the importance of boundaries, because it's important for them to know and be able to express what's okay for them and what's not okay for them.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, because this afternoon, I was having the same conversation with my son in regards something that he made a comment to me back, and he's like, "Oh, mom, it's because you're older and you're an adult, so you know how to do it already because you're an adult." And I was like, "But you know what? I keep telling you this and I keep reminding you this. It's because you're still young." And there's a saying there that says, when you're younger, you can learn things faster. When you're older, it takes harder, and it's harder work to learn or to change bad habits.
Yeah.
So
can't teach an old dog new tricks.
So I told him the reason why I continue to remind you, and the reason why I continue to like tell you these things, is because I want you to learn them at a young age. Because if you wait until you're like mommy's age, it's going to be harder for you to learn them. So if you are raising like young children, like, have the importance of sitting down with them and teaching them boundaries, because you'll be surprised like how many kids don't know boundaries.
So it's funny that you mentioned that. That's something that I'm currently working with Emma and at her 3-year stage of learning body boundaries.
Exactly.
So, with kids, you have to start with small things, but body boundaries of, if she says, "Don't touch me," I tell my husband and we have to like just let go of her and don't touch her. It's respecting. You said stop touching. Everybody needs to stop touching you. If you don't want to be kissed, if you don't want to be hugged, if you don't want to be touched, that thing that you're saying needs to be respected. If, for instance, now she's like at a phase that she wants to do it by herself, or she wants to be in bed alone, respect it. I'm not going to impose myself. If she's in a safe environment, if her life is not a threat, like, then I respect it, because I need her to understand that if she says something, it needs to stick and the person needs to respect it. If they don't respect it, she needs to, I tell her, use her loud voice and say, "Don't touch me, leave me alone," and then go and tell an adult, right? So like body boundaries. But that, like you said, that is a start. Yeah. Be surprised. That is such a big start, because if you don't teach them that, and you like, let's say, every time that she tells you, "Okay, mom, dad, I want to be alone in my room," and you're like, "No, you're not going to be alone. We're going to be here with you," or you can't, like, you're pretty much giving her a form of telling her, okay, like, I have to allow this because my parents did it. So as you get older, like, I'm going to tell people this, but people are not going to respect what I'm telling them. But that's normal because mom and dad always did it for me. So like, I have to. So it's so important. Like, even in that, like what you're doing right now, it's such a key, important part, because it's giving her that set already in her mind. Okay, when I said no, or I didn't like something, or I don't want something, obviously within the standards of what is okay. Obviously, I'm not going to tell her like, "Oh, I want to run out to the street," or she's going to run out to the street. Obviously, there's also a limit to it.
But like in those scenarios, it's so important, because the day of tomorrow, like, you're raising girls, I'm raising boys.
Yeah.
And we have two different scenarios. Or you're going to teach your girls that they're the ones that have to learn to say stop.
Yeah.
And I have to teach my boys that when somebody tells you stop, you stop.
Yeah.
You don't keep going.
So another way that I've taught her that, and I had to teach, people that are in the family that are of an older generation, I remember growing up, it's like, saluda, like say hi and give that person a hug. If my daughter doesn't want to give you a hug that day because she doesn't want to give you a hug, she's not going to give you a hug. I'm not going to force her and be like, do it, because she doesn't want to. She doesn't feel comfortable. She's not in the mood to. I do tell her, be cordial and say hello. But if you don't need to touch them, body boundary. And then respect her body. But she doesn't want to hug you. She doesn't want to kiss you. I'm sorry. Today's not that day.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like that's something that in our culture, it's very like sometimes like forced, like you have to love, to care for me.
The aunt that comes and just like grabs the child, that she needs to learn. It's like, no, you need to also learn to respect the boundary.
And let her learn to love you.
Yeah, let her come to you when she's ready.
Exactly.
And it's not being disrespectful. I'm not telling you, I'm teaching her to dislike you. It's just that she doesn't feel comfortable. Why am I going to put her in an uncomfortable scenario? So going back to like an adult scenario, we need to do that to ourselves and not permit things that are going to hurt us. So what does the Bible say about boundaries? I think that's an important thing to talk about, because when we're talking about boundaries, right? Did Jesus put boundaries?
Yeah,
biblically, what does it say about boundaries?
So yeah, God did put boundaries. There's this mindset that you have to allow certain things to continue to happen over and over because it's the Christian thing to do. It's the godly thing to do. But a lot of the times people don't realize that Jesus himself set boundaries.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of verses in the Bible that kind of explain to you in regards boundaries. And I wish people realize that sometimes if God himself set boundaries, okay, who are we to say that we can't set boundaries? Who says that we have to, like a lot of people say, just when somebody hurts you, just turn the page and keep going. Like, no, like
I feel like scripture sometimes is misinterpreted, or it's used one way and then used the other way to like your advantage. And I agree with you. Sometimes it's like, oh, you got to turn the other cheek, and just how many times do you have to forgive them? 70 times 70. Yes, you can continue to forgive them. And it's an importance to forgive a person, no matter how many times they say it. You know, you forgive and you keep going. But you don't have to continue to allow it.
You don't have to. There's a verse in the Bible, I think Galatians 6:5. It says each person needs to carry their own load. So you can't continue to carry with somebody that is not your situation to carry on. And unfortunately, you know, for our Latino listeners out there, and in our culture, there's a lot of the times there's this burden that like you have to carry because we're family and we have to stick by each other.
Yeah.
And that regardless of what it is, like family needs to stick together. And yes, I agree, family does need to stick together, but there's certain moments where you have to like let go and say, okay, no, I'm placing a boundary.
Yeah.
And I have to let God
do
that in that person. And I'm not the one that needs to be carrying that load on my back.
Yeah.
It's so draining to see people think that God wants us to be drained, to be carrying with everybody's problems, putting everybody's things on your back because, you know, because you're a Christian, like you need to carry with all of that on your back. And God didn't say that at no point that their problems need to become your problems.
Yeah.
You know? I think with the next verse that I want to talk about, I feel like it goes a lot to what my mom used to tell us a lot of the times. Avoid being a frequent guest at a neighbor's home. And my mom always used to tell us, like,
you don't need to be anybody's
home. You don't need to be anybody's home. You have everything that you need here. You don't need to be always in somebody else's business. And what happens is a lot of times, a lot of people think that they have a right to be in everyone's business. And have an opinion in regard to everybody else, or tell you how they think you need to do this. And if you don't set that boundary and tell them, okay, no.
Yeah.
Number one, I didn't ask for your opinion. I always tell people, if somebody doesn't ask you for your opinion, don't give it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that moment, your opinion is, in Spanish, se dice sobra, pero it's just extra.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. Yes, in that moment, maybe you're like, oh my God, this person, like, if I tell them this, it's going to make their life so easier. And like, let me just tell them. But you don't know where that person is at that moment. You don't know what that person is dealing with. And maybe you sharing that opinion is just going to be like, who are you to tell me this or blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Now, if there's a moment where if God gives you that window when somebody is like coming to you and they actually like, what do you think? That window of what do you think? Share your opinion. Give them your 3 cents.
Yeah.
If somebody's coming to you and letting you know, okay, I'm dealing with this, like, I don't know what's going on. And like, they want an opinion, share it. But if somebody's just sharing something with you, but they're not asking you for an opinion, don't share it. Because you're inputting something that in that moment can create a really bad reaction. And if you don't know that boundary, like, that's a boundary I think everybody needs to have.
Yeah.
And it's funny that a lot of the times everybody has it because nobody wants an opinion when it's not wanted.
Well, yeah.
But a lot of us don't understand that. A lot of times the opinion that's going to come out of your mouth isn't wanted.
Yeah.
So, like, come on, like, let's put one and one together. Like, put yourself in that person's shoes. Like, you don't want that opinion. When you're in that situation, what makes you think that person wants your opinion right now? So it for me, as I said, like, this is the topic that I'm so very passionate about because I've seen so many like situations where people are like, oh, it's like, I'm sharing this with you, but it's like, it wasn't asked.
Yeah.
It wasn't like nobody asked you for it. And not trying to be rude about it, not trying to be mean about it, but like, if I didn't ask you, like, why are you coming at me?
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, in regards to this like conversation, like I said, it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. I can say like in my last few times that I've had to place boundaries, it's been more of God, like, okay, God, because sometimes there's situations that happened in your life, right? And scenarios and things that you see happen. And you ask God, like, give me clarity of the situation.
Okay.
Show me and let it be your eyes that reveal to me what I need to see. Because sometimes, like, don't get me wrong, like, there's moments where like God in a certain way is telling you like you need to put a boundary, but you're like, nah, like, this is not going to be bad. Like, this is just like, this is going to be fine. Like, this is going to be okay. I got this. But there's a lot of the times where I've had to take a step back and I had to tell God, okay, God, show me. What is it that you're trying to show me?
Yeah.
Because right now I'm not seeing it, obviously, because I wanted to see it with my eyes. But let me see it with your eyes so I can understand. And I don't know, maybe there's somebody out there listening right now that, has like that little feeling inside there where there's either a boyfriend, girlfriend, a friend, a family member, whatever, whoever it could be that you're in relationship with. And there's things about that person that you've started to notice and you're seeing them. And like I went back at the beginning that they're not aligning with what God has in your heart or what God has shown you or what God wants with you or wants of you. And you're saying, okay, like, all right, God, you're showing me this. You're revealing this to me. I'm starting to see the things that are not aligning. We're not at a point where either that person has done something to me or has directly hurt me, but I've seen how they've hurt others.
Yeah.
I've seen how they've done damage to others. I've seen how things that they do don't align with who you are, God.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I should continue having relationship with this person if what I'm supposed to do is guard my heart. Why would I allow somebody close to me be in my circle if they're not being aligned with you? So when God starts to give you that clarity and God starts to show you those things, like, did you see that? Did you notice that? Did you observe that? Don't look at it as like, oh my God, like, I don't want to pay attention to this. Like, no, wait, God, like, hold on.
So it's funny that you say that because it goes to something that happened to me a few years ago. I had a really good friend, and I remember I had to set a boundary with her because God was showing me her heart right now towards you is envious.
Ooh.
She wasn't a bad friend. She wasn't a bad person. She was going through her own situation, and she was seeing, I guess, things coming into my life that she wanted, and her heart was envious of mine, like of what I had. And I struggled with that because I was like, but that's so mean. That's not the Christ thing to do to like shut her out.
Exactly.
But God showed me a verse in Proverbs that it said, like, guard yourself from people who have envy hearts.
Yep.
Because there's not a right spirit in there. The spirit of envy is not a good spirit to be in friendship with. And I remember I had to tell her, and I confronted her. And I was like, look, I understand that you're going through something, and I wish I could help you, but I'm feeling this from you, and I need some time. And I think we need to just have some time apart for a bit while you
work
on what's going on with you, and I work on me. And I remember, 'cause I'm also not the type of person that, like, I'll set a boundary, but if you need me, I'll be there for you. But you have to really need me, type of thing.
We're a little different in that one.
Yeah, we're very different in that one. Stephanie's the Great Wall of China. I'm
right after my mom.
Yeah. I can be, not. I'll be offense type of thing.
She gives in a little bit.
I give in a little bit, yeah, because I remember after that she called me because she had her car got broken into, and I was like, I'll be there in a bit, like, because I was nearby, so I was like, oh, I'll be there and I'll help you out. But it was with a limit, like, okay, I'll help you, but that's it. And it was like that for a few years until she healed from her situation, and she got into like a different time in her life, and she was fine. But I had to put that, because if I continued to allow her, I was gonna feel guilty about having what I was having, and that she wasn't having it, and then I wasn't going to be able to enjoy it because she wasn't enjoying it for me. And so it wasn't fair, and it hurt for a bit because she was a really good friend of mine, but I had to do it for her healing,
exactly,
and for me to walk into the season that I was walking into.
Yeah, and you say a very good point there, and this is something that I want people, like, also to understand. Sometimes when God gives you that revelation, and like you said it earlier, God sometimes gives us people for seasons.
Yeah,
correct? And because we're supposed to be in that person's life for a season. And sometimes what happens is that we have, like you said, we have that mindset that, this is not the Christian thing to do. Like, I need to help this person get through with this, or I got to help them continue fight through this, regardless of whatever, how many times there's these conflicts or these things that affect, I have to stick there. Wrong. There's a season.
Yeah.
That you have to be in that person's life. And God designed that season for a purpose, for a reason.
Yeah.
And the reason is because during that season, you were going to invest in that person what God needed you to invest in that person. But from there on, God is telling you, okay, time to put the boundary because you did what I asked of you to do. Now they need to move on and let me continue working that process and that.
So, what comes to my mind is that a lot of people think that we need to plant the seed, water the seed, and then harvest the seed.
Exactly.
Sometimes God only needs us to plant it.
Exactly.
Other times he needs us to plant it and then water it.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be scenarios where we do all three.
All three. Exactly.
There's going to be scenarios where we only do one of the three.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be okay with that.
And you have to be okay. And that doesn't make you any less of a Christian.
Yeah.
Doesn't make you any less of a, oh, you're not doing what God called you to do. No. Like we said it earlier, sometimes we're just meant to be in people's lives for a season.
Yeah.
So going like back to like what you were just saying, because when I was listening to you, I was like, oh my God, like, you know, because a lot of the times people think that we have to continue being in these relationships regardless of whatever happens. But God sometimes calls us to just like, okay, you did what I needed you to do. Now I need you to let go. Because what happens is when we don't remove ourselves, you know what we're doing? We're actually stopping God from doing what he needs to do next. Because we're being an interference for that person's life. So we need to understand that sometimes our job is just a season. And that's okay. So for all of you out there listening, like, you know, we did talk about a couple of verses and we did express a little bit of verses, but you know, just to share two more, there's one in 1 Corinthians 15:33. It says, avoid certain kinds of people who could corrupt you. There's another one in 1 Corinthians 5:11 says, do not eat with people who are hypocritical. And a lot of the times, like, we have to be very careful because if we surround ourselves with people that we're like, oh, yeah, they do that, but I know what's good. I know what's good for me. Like, I'm not gonna, no. Be careful. Be careful. Because it's always easier to do bad than to do good. So be careful.
So it goes back to the concept of like the fence in the house. Like, you gotta be careful. Because if you don't put that fence and you don't respect the fence, people like that man is just going to walk into your backyard and they're going to pull up a chair and they're going to sit there. And then it's going to be hard to remove that. And then it's going to be another person and then another person. And you have a group of people in your life or in your, like, or traits and mindsets in your personal life that you've adopted and welcomed that didn't need to be there.
Exactly. So, guys, once again, for all of you out there listening, boundaries, like, they're important. They're important for, like, we've also had a couple previous episodes where we spoke about mental health, and boundaries is part of mental health.
Yeah.
It goes into that lane of taking care of your mental health. And just remember that what I said earlier, you know, God, what he wants us to protect the most is our heart. And we have to be very careful and we have to guard it. And we have to be very careful who we're going to allow to be around us. And if we start seeing things that do not align and that are starting to affect us, don't be afraid to set that boundary. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Yeah, reach out, continue to send us comments, prayers, anything you guys have in your minds, thoughts. We really, really appreciate your feedback. We look forward to hearing from you guys, seeing what comments you guys have. Any suggestions also you guys may have, opinions, anything. We're interested.
Topics you guys want to hear about, let us know.
Let us know. So thank you guys once again for listening, and God bless.
Bye. Thanks so much for spending time with us here at Lighthouse Collective. We hope today's conversation brought a little light to your day and encouraged you to keep moving forward no matter where you are in your journey. Remember, you're never alone. There's always hope, always peace, and always a light to guide you. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share with someone who might need a little encouragement. Until next time, stay anchored in hope and keep shining your light.